Hello, friends! This is People Are Interesting with Jan K. In each episode of this show, unique individuals share stories that take us on a ride across ideas and places, featuring crocodile attacks in Indonesia, escaping war-torn Lebanon, and shark protection schemes in Mauritania. This podcast takes you where you've never been before. Enjoy and thank you for joining the club. Hi, Mitch.
Hey, Ian, hey, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
Fine too, thanks.
Well, thanks for accepting an invitation.
Hey, of course, I'm excited.
So am I. This topic, steroid use, has been something that I've been curious about for a while now. I have watched some videos. Maybe you've seen it as well on Vice. They had steroid coverage,
hmm
um, but I thought that this. I basically was curious if this is a fair, representation of what steroid use is. So you describe yourself as a recreational steroid user. What
Right.
what does that mean?
Um, so I'm not taking like crazy amounts, right? Like a lot of these guys that you see on on like the big stages, they're taking boatloads of gear. I'd say that I do a cycle maybe once a year at maximum. And I always get my lab work done just to make sure that like my health points are still in check. Because at the end of the day, I'm not trying to make this like I'm not trying to get rich off being as jacked as I can be, right? It's just a nice way to fuel a pastime of mine.
Got it. Okay. So let's take it from the beginning. When did you start going to the gym? When how long was it until you made this transition to occasional steroid use? What was kind of, I want to understand the background to this story.
Yeah, so I started going to the gym probably in high school in about I'd say grade 10. I was on the football team and I was like, hey, I just need to gain strength and gain weight. And then I quickly was seeing just like how addicting it is there being able to like change your body, right? Through pushing yourself either like in a workout or just changing your food intake. And that's just step one, right? Like at that point I felt I it was my favorite thing, right?
Can
And
I?
then sorry, yeah, go.
No, no, please continue.
Oh, what I was about to say is that after about training for 5 years, that's when I looked at something called a pro hormone, and all that is like it's a substance that your body takes and it changes it into an actual hormone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I did once, right? That taxes your body more than like a steroid itself does. Then after that, I think I waited another year or two, and then I did my first like formal like steroid cycle.
Okay, got it. So before we get to the details of the actual cycles and everything around that, I would like to understand what was the motivation to actually when you basically decided, hey, diet and exercising a lot is not enough for me. I wanna get to this next level. Could you tell me a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so I'm really type A. Like in my mind, like I need things right now. Whether that's things at work, I'm always go go go. If it's things in my life, I just like to set goals and I like to hit them fast. Right? I'm not really interested in slow, boring types of things, especially if it's like especially at work, especially at work. So I was viewing the gym in that same lens. I was like, okay, um, the gym's fun and all, right? I like the things I'm seeing. I'm getting stronger. I'm gaining some size, but it just wasn't fast enough that really got me excited.
Understood. Can I understand a little bit about your body physique? Are you naturally quite muscular? Do you tend to build muscles easily, or is was it basically you felt like you needed to compensate? Like some guys are a little bit more lean, like myself, for example,
Hmm.
don't build muscles as quickly as others. Where do you fit into that?
So when I started, um, back in university, right? Like I was probably 6'2", 225 pounds, right? Um,
That's jacked as shit.
not jacked though. I was just a large body,
Okay,
right? Like I've like I have wide shoulders naturally, but I also have a wide waist, so it doesn't really look like it's jacked. It's just more or less I'm just a I'm basically a fridge. I'm basically a
gotcha.
fridge. It's just square. But
Hmm.
when I first started to go to the gym, I was 6'2", 185, and where my body held its weight was mainly in my legs. So I was like, oh, cool. Like no one can even tell that I'm basically in the gym every day,
Hmm.
right? So then in football, I did this thing for a month because again I was like I need to gain weight, and I drank a gallon of milk every day for 1 month, and I'm serious, man. I gained 40 pounds in a month. I was,
Whoa, are you
yeah,
kidding me?
I'm serious. My football coach came up to me and said, "Hey, Mitch, is there anything that you want to tell me? Is there anything that is going on?" And at first, I was shocked. I was like, "Coach, I don't understand." And then he's like, "You gained a considerable amount of weight in a very short period of time." And I was like, "Oh, I got you." And thankfully, I had my shaker cup there, and I just opened it up, and I was like, "Hey, look, like I'm chugging milk every day." And we just both started laughing our heads off. And
Dang it. Wait, what kind of muscle did you gain in that month? Was it like just body fat or was it
I'd say, I mean, a pretty good amount of it was fat, but again, because of the way that I held weight, right, like it was mainly in my legs. I wouldn't say that like you could really tell that there was much fat gain. Like, I think I just went from someone that was more of like a slender build in my top half to just more that was a little bit more thick. But I wouldn't go as far as to say like there was a lot of like fat that you could like squeeze and grab,
Mhm.
right? But by no means was were there abs in the picture.
Okay, understood. Fine. So this would be the background and then you decide to make a switch. How did you learn about this? Was it people at the gym you were going to were already on it, or what was your path into taking steroids for the first time?
So none of my friends were as like involved or interested in the gym as I was. They kind of just went, they did a workout, and they left. Where like, sorry, me, I was more focused on like, let's just like, I don't want to waste my time. So I didn't want to either ask anyone at the gym either because like I didn't want that to be a known thing at the time because at that point I was about 22, and I just didn't want to get that rep of just being the guy on juice, right? So I just went online, and I found encyclopedias of information, tons of information. There's this book. It's basically the steroid Bible. I think I told you. It's
You did
called
mention.
it's called Anabolic's 10th, and that thing takes you through every steroid, right? It takes you through every health marker. It takes you through how they work, what they do to a person's hormones, to their system, to everything. And I spent a year just reading over that book, just trying to just gather as much information because I'm not a dumb individual, so I knew that taking steroids I could cause permanent harm if I wasn't smart about it, right? So I figured, how about I just learn as much as I can, and if I want to still take them after I've learned as much as I think I need to, then fine with me.
Yeah, noted. Can you tell me a little bit about the why you didn't want to have the rep of a guy on juice from your point of view? Because I have a vague understanding that this is a pretty covert thing, or at least it used to be, but I'm not entirely sure why that is the case, why
Mhm.
it's kind of frowned upon.
Yeah, so back then there were more misconceptions about like roid rage, like, oh, if you take this, you're going to be angry all the time, you're a loose cannon, your dick shrinks, which is not true. um, and it was just kind of viewed like you took the simple way out to get jacked, when again that's not the case. Whereas now there's still some of that from a place of ignorance, which I get totally, but it is getting kind of like more accepted. Like I've noticed that a lot of people just frankly don't care, where back then it used to be more of like more of a negative thing. It could have also just been my age, because back then I was 22 when I was looking at it for the first time. Now, 8 years after that, it's not as big of a deal.
So it has made its way into the mainstream a little bit.
Yeah, right. If you open anything on like TikTok or on Instagram, you're seeing it there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's a good or a bad thing, because it probably for some individuals it will be used as a way to cut corners.
Mhm. I think it's a bad thing. Um, the use on socials, right? Like on TikTok and Instagram specifically, just because a lot of times people are either saying outrageous amounts, right, that you don't need, or they're saying that they're natural, but they're actually enhanced. And that can just make someone who's busting their balls in the gym feel like crap, being like, "Wow, I'm working so hard, and I don't look like that guy, but secretly he's taking something, right? Some kind of enhancement drug."
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so 8 years ago, you said you were 22. Um,
Hmm.
you go on your first cycle, is that right?
Hmm.
Okay, so what did you take?
For that one, I did what everyone says that you should do, and I just took test, right? So
Testosterone.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I just had that, just had one variable, right? So I knew if anything went wrong, I knew exactly like what it's like. I did a dose of 500 milligrams a week, which is a pretty standard dose if you look at like forums online for your first time. And yeah, it went awesome. I think I did it for 4 months, and it was great.
4 months. Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you feel? What's the objective of testosterone? What should it do for you when you start taking it?
So as males, right, test is going to just make you essentially more of a man, right? Like it lets you just strength increases drastically, muscle mass is easier to just pack on. You'll notice that hair growth increases, both facial as well as on like your back and chest, right? Your voice, depending on your age, might go down a couple tones, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's only if you start it like really early, which I don't advise, right? But it's basically just feeling like Like you're king shit. I won't lie to you.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take it in two turns. Turn
hmm
number one, the physical aspect of your first cycle. Turn number two, your mental aspect of it.
hmm So turn one, the physical side, I was increasing weight every time in the gym, right? Like using the same weight twice was just never happening, right? I'd say in terms of specific weight gain, I don't recall, right? But realistically, it's no stretch of the imagination to say I gained probably 15 pounds, right? So at that point, I was probably 240 at the end of it, and
240. That's and you were 6 foot two.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I am
So
six
then,
foot two. I am 6 foot two, and I am in pounds. What that would be? It's gonna be like 160 or something. Let me double check. Yeah, 178, 176.
okay, yeah, yeah, right. So
Darn it.
it's easy to pack on weight, and I'd say the amount of fat that I had stayed about the exact same, like from like what I could see, right? Like it wasn't like at the start of the cycle I had abs, and at the end of the cycle I was fat, right? I'd say the amount of fat I was holding stayed roughly the exact same.
Gotcha. Okay.
From the personal side, and like what was going on in my headspace, I'd say that I was always a pretty confident individual. I am more of an introvert, but being on test just kind of it just boosted your confidence even more. It's kind of like what's the best way I can explain it? Yeah, it's simply it's it's not a great answer, but it literally just makes you a more confident male, right? Even if you already have like a good level of that, and I would say it just makes you more of who you actually are. So if you're a hothead, you're gonna be more of a hothead, right? If you're just a casual, nice guy, same exact boat.
Okay. That's that's very interesting. I personally wouldn't know. I've never tried. But what about those all those opinions that it does make you act wild?
hmm
Because from what you're saying, it seems like your behavior is not necessarily linked to being on testosterone. Like it feels like you're what you're saying, that you basically felt no effects on the way you carry yourself.
I wouldn't say I felt no effects. I would say I just felt more confident,
Hmm.
right? In really like every scenario. If it was like, because back then I was in school, so if it was giving a talk to my members in my class, if it was going to work back then, I wouldn't maybe be as shy, or I wouldn't if before testosterone I wouldn't have said something that was on my mind, right? I would say it now, still in a polite way. Like it's not like I'd bark at people and fly off the handle, but it was just kind of a little bit more assertive,
Okay. So
right?
that was, yeah, that makes sense. And so that was your first cycle, right?
hmm
What what happened what happened after? Did you get off it? Never returned? What has been going on since then? Because that has been a while ago now.
Yeah. So since then, I came off, right. I did what you're supposed to do, called a PCT, where you take a couple different compounds or drugs to really help your natural system kick back on. Because as you're taking testosterone, you won't be making your own, right? So when you stop taking that test, you now need to help your system kind of make its own all over again, right? So I did that, and then I think I stayed off for maybe another year. Like I've really been in the habit of only doing like one a year. Um, and then I actually got into the habit of making it because the websites that I was finding information off of had a section at the bottom with kind of instructions and chat rooms of where you could talk to people about how to make the stuff, right? You buy the powders from like somewhere overseas. They send you it labeled as like amino acids, and then you make a little like lab environment in your basement, super small, like the size I'm talking about is it could fit on my desk, right? And I would just make enough just for me, because being in school, it was again just it could get expensive. So I was like, okay, what can I do to cut my cost?
What kind of money are we talking about?
Back then, I think one vial of test, 10 mils, would probably be like $95, right? And that,
Canadian dollars, though.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that would last probably one vial would last about 5 weeks at that dose of like 500 a week, right? But if you take more, it'll obviously last less.
Okay.
So I
So
think
going
I
through a cycle, what kind of
mm,
money are we talking?
you'd so going off that standard one, right? Right, 16 weeks, 500 a week. You're probably looking at 3 vials, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever 95 times three is, just under 300.
Mm-hmm.
And then the compounds you need to come off, right? Um, that would probably, let's call it another 300, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say all in all, you're looking at least six for just the compounds that you want to take. You then also need to think about you're buying the needles, you're buying a container for sharps. You also need to take just some like health aids, right? Like an omega 3 or those types of things. So let's call it, let's say the overall cost for a 4 month cycle is like 750.
Okay, Canadian dollars. So that's like
Yeah,
around, let's say, 350, between 350 and
which is
$400 American.
insane. That exchange rate sucks.
Yeah. Um, okay. So this is not a insurmountable financial barrier for
Yeah, no,
people to
not at all.
cross by any chance. That makes sense. Okay. So yeah, thank you for explaining that. Let's get back to what you've been doing after the first cycle. So you've done, and sorry, just one more thing. So you've done the first cycle. You were super happy with the results, I presume. And
Mhm.
what about the side effects? Have you experienced any side effects during your first cycle? If so, do you mind talking about those?
Yeah, I didn't get a single side effect. No, no acne. I would say I got stretch marks just because again I gained a significant amount of size. But to be honest with you, I already had the stretch marks from when I gained the 40 pounds in high school, right? They've calmed down a lot, so now they're just white marks. So it's really hard to actually see them. So I wouldn't even call them a side effect now, right? But no hair loss, no acne, no mood changes, nothing, like not a single side. It was great.
Okay, good to know. So thereafter,
Mhm.
what was what was your journey like thereafter?
Thereafter, as soon as you come off, right, it kind of just feels like it's not a down where like you feel sad or anything, but your the your edge is now gone, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get as excited in the gym because you're like, oh, like I'm normal again. I've tasted what it's like to be more than, and it was awesome, and now I'm dropped back down, right? So there is a little bit of that. I wouldn't call it like your mood is down. It's just you lack enthusiasm, right? And I think that's what really fuels us to take more, right? Just to do more cycles. And I would imagine it also fuels some guys to just stay on year round.
How well did you keep the gains from the gym after the first cycle?
The first one, my weight stayed the same. I would definitely say that my strength dropped off significantly. I would attribute that to just not being as experienced as I am now, right? So I would say I lost maybe a quarter.
Okay, fine. Very interesting. And were you doing other things later on? Other steroids, or was it always testosterone?
Yeah, so after that, I was like, okay, test is cool. Then I've tried a couple different like injectable ones, and I've tried a couple different ones in the form of capsules or pills, right? I can go further in on that if you're interested.
Yeah, could you please elaborate a little bit? What was the difference between them? Why would you switch? How often? What were the side effects?
hmm So I guess I'll talk about the most recent cycle I did because that's the one that I remember best, right? That one started last November, and I stayed on until the end of June. So I was on for about 7 months, right? Which is a pretty considerable time. But again, I'm only doing one a year. And realistically, I don't think I'll do 7 months again just because I did notice that I started to get stuck. Like the progress that I was making, it kind of stalled out, and I didn't want to take more steroids, right? Because I don't like to go too far past the side of like, okay, you're performing well, but now your health is in the toilet, right? So on that cycle, I was taking 750 of test, so I upped it a little bit, and I was taking an oral as well at the start for the first 6 weeks called Super Draw. Um, that one's really powerful. It's great. It packs on strength and size, like lean size, like nothing. And then at about week 10 of like the 30 weeks, I think, um, I brought in trenbolone, and that's the one that has all the side effects. That's the one that makes you a dick, right? You're more snappy. Like that's like the roid rage type of drug. But again, thankfully, like I knew to expect that, so I kept myself in check. Where I was like, "Hey, look, if you have weird thoughts, that's because of this drug. If you have a temper, that's because this drug. Like, just keep yourself in check. Like, you're the one in charge, not the drug."
So, knowing what you know about the side effects, why did you still decide to bring in trembolone or trembolone? I'm not
Yeah.
sure if my pronunciation is right.
Oh, no, you're saying it exactly right. So, the thing with Tren is that it's the most powerful steroid you can take. It also does have the most side effects, and um, so I was like, I gotta try this stuff. I just have to see, right? So I started taking a small amount. I think it was 200 milligrams a week. And there are some guys that go absurd. They go to 5 or 7, which I don't know how you even could. It's crazy, but it makes you very warm, right? You can get some night sweats, right? It it's it's a drug that your diet can be trash and you're gonna look better every single day. It burns fat and it builds lean mass like nothing else. It's toxic for your liver, right? So that's why you can't stay on it for a long period of time or at a high dose. And it's going to affect your hormones differently than testosterone does because it's not a testosterone based type type of drug.
So it's some powerful shit there.
Yeah, it's something that to be completely honest with you, um, if I use it again, I'd probably use it at a very low dose, like maybe 200 at absolute most, because it can really just wreak havoc on your system. And because I don't plan to compete or anything, there's no real need for it. I can still achieve the same, well, not the same, I can still achieve similar effects with safer compounds and just more focus on just food.
Gotcha. Okay. What I wanted to ask you is, because the way you talk about it is you almost kind of draw comparisons between them, how they work, how you feel after them. So it makes me think of, you know, for example, someone who likes coffee or someone who likes weed, and they're like, "Oh, this weed is good. That coffee tastes great." You know, is
Hmm.
that a thing where you're like hit a, hit some testosterone, and you can be, "Oh, this is good shit. Oh, this is not really good." You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd say it's easier. I'd say the comparison like that is better for different types of drugs. Be like, well, that is test, that is trend, that is something else, right? Because they all feel different, right? Um,
Which one feels best?
I'd say test, right? Like test by itself, you literally just feel like the most alpha male on the planet. I'd say all the others, they can mess with you a bit, right? But if you know that going into it, then again, like you're expecting it. So like you might have more anxiety or different thoughts, or like you have a shorter fuse. So as long as you're aware of that before you take it, I think that you'll be just fine, right? As long as you keep yourself in check.
Okay, let's do a quick rundown.
Yeah.
Um, so Trembolone, how does
Hmm.
that feel?
Um, Trend feels better than test. It feels absolutely amazing. If you're if your testosterone, I mean, if your levels of estrogen are in the right place. If your levels of estrogen are too high because of test, then you're gonna feel like dog crap, right? But view trend, ah, like you're walking through. So okay, here. So the feeling of trend is that you're walking through an ocean of girls, and they all want you all the time.
Gotcha. Oh, sorry, I thought that there was more coming.
No, no, no.
Okay,
That's honestly it. Yeah, yeah.
that's it. And then, because I remember in our conversation, you've sent me a quick list of the things that you've tried over the years. I don't personally remember what was on that list anymore, but would you mind if you can, from off the top of your head, share some of the other things that you've tried and how those made you feel, and whether what was your impression of them?
Yeah, so test, I love it. Super droll, I love it. It gives you gives you more of a pump in the gym. You're more aggressive, like there in the gym. Um, Talked about Tren already. The nandrolone ones like NPP, those ones, it really depends, right? Again, if your estrogen's in check, you feel awesome, right? You feel again just confident. But if your estrogen's not in check, it's gonna make you paranoid and just like super anxious.
As in, like, it's
Um,
gonna be high or low, your estrogen?
Estrogen's high.
You need to have it high. That means, but
No, no,
basically,
no.
when you say that if your estrogen is in check, what does that mean?
If your estrogen is within the normal range of, so you when you're on cycle, you want your test to be as high as possible, like off the charts. but you want your level of estrogen in the normal range for a natural male,
Got
right?
it.
And that's a constant fight because our body wants to always achieve a state of balance. So our body has different kinds of enzymes that will convert testosterone into a form of estrogen, and that's just going to wreak havoc if that balance gets out of whack, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you'll gain more fat, you can gain mass in your nipples, right? Like that's
Mm.
brutal, right? So as long as you keep your estrogen in that normal range, in that balance, the sides are pretty much non-existent.
Okay. One other one that you've mentioned when we were talking was insulin. That kind of surprised me.
Mm,
Would you mind
yeah.
talking about that one?
Yeah, so that one, I was working with this coach, and hindsight, I should have never done it because I could have screwed myself up bad. But I was working with this coach. I was thinking of competing. I was probably 25 or 26. And I just wanted something else that could just give me another edge, right? Realistically, if this coach was smart, he would have known that we could have just optimized my diet a little bit more and optimized my steroids a little bit more to avoid insulin, but never had that thought. So what would happen is that I would take the insulin right before the gym, right? Like I would actually take it at the gym, and I would inject it. I would start a workout. I'd be drinking carbs throughout, right? Probably like 50 grams of carbs, maybe even more. And then after the workout, I would plow carbs. Like I would have 3 cups of rice like immediately afterwards. Um, that one, to be honest with you, I didn't really notice much, and I think it's because um, I just didn't need it yet. Like I wasn't maxed out on what I could naturally hold with, well, not naturally hold, but what I could hold using just steroids. So I really think that that was something that I had no business being involved in, and truthfully, I don't think really anyone does unless you want to step on stage at like a high level.
Okay. That actually made me think about something. So, out of stuff that you haven't tried yet, what's on your bucket list? Is there anything like that? If that's even a saying?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That absolutely is. I want to try this drug called Masteron, right? Superdrol is the oral form of it, right? And Masteron is really just a drug that just gives you a really hard look, right? So sometimes you can look fluffy or like smooth, right? This
Mm-hmm.
is something that when you see the guys on like an Instagram post or like the cover of the magazine, and they're just like carved out of rock, that's what Mass does,
Ah,
right? So I'm interested in trying that. Um, I'm interested in trying this other compound called anadrol, right? Um, it's comparable to Superdrol. It's a capsule as well. It's just one that's been around forever. So it's one that I feel like since everyone has used it, I might as well just see why. The only reason I haven't is that it's kind of a wet type of compound, and all that means is that it has a high, like it likes to raise your estrogen, right? So that's the only reason I've just avoided it,
okay. That makes
and
sense.
that's honestly it. Like in terms, like there are a lot more steroids available, but none of them are really like in line with what I want.
What's what's the holy grail of steroid? Is there something like that something that is just on the next level when because there are guys who are gymming, they will sort their diet out, things like that. Then I think the next level is just doing any form of steroids, But how hardcore can people get?
Oh my gosh, it's brutal. There was this guy, Boston Lloyd. You can search him up. He passed away. He was quite young. I want to say he was 27, but he was notorious for taking absurd amounts of steroids. Right? He shared his cycle like online. You can search it up, just Boston Lloyd's
Mm,
cycle, and it's the most terrifying thing on the planet. It's an insane amount of drugs. Like some people, their maximum is, okay, I'm going to take 1,000 milligrams a week combined of everything, right? If they're taking 2 compounds, 3 compounds, right? This guy was taking at least a gram of probably 3 different kinds, right? And on top of taking different pills, different types of things like that, using HGH, using insulin, like just absurd, just blatant abuse. So you can get you can go wild, but as you can see, there's a lot of people in the news that are passing away because they're not using them in like a safe type of way.
is there a way to use it safely?
Yeah, the best way is get your lab work done before the cycle, get your lab work done during the cycle, and get your lab work done afterwards, and just always keep yourself in check, right? Just seeing, okay, what's the cholesterol like? What's the what is the RBC count? Just a lot of different types of markers. And if you're always watching how your system is doing, then definitely.
With all due respect, right?
Mhm.
But y- you don't have any professional medical training, right?
I actually do.
Okay, you do. But a
Yeah,
lot of guys that
they don't.
they
Yeah.
don't, right? So a
Mm,
lot of this is kind of self-medication.
absolutely.
So now it has gotten really interesting if you do have professional medical qualification. May I ask you what is it?
Yeah. So clinical neuroscience.
Okay. So obviously you're way more literate in any kind of medical literature, and you have a serious background knowledge and understanding. Um,
But to be completely fair, a lot
mhm,
of the people online, right? They have a ton of knowledge, right? Like where they've poured hours into just reading the material. Sure, it's not formal education, but they've really put the time in. At that same coin though, you definitely have a lot of people that don't think at all about it and they just throw out crazy numbers,
mhm.
right?
Okay.
So that's the hard part.
Okay. So that's very interesting because I would imagine that it must be easier for you to interpret all this data. Because, for example, when you say, "Well, do your blood work," and you started talking about all those markers, you've kind of lost me quite quickly because I do not have any form of medical training. So
Mhm.
I would imagine that there is so many bros like myself who might be interested in doing steroids, but are basically just like me, right? The
Mhm.
details are there's just it's a complicated area, okay,
Mhm.
in my opinion. What are the risks for guys like that? Because I think your risk profile is actually slightly different than the average user.
Right. So I'd say for someone that doesn't have a background in it, right? And someone who doesn't want to take the time to like read about it online, right? I'd say that their risk is very high, right? If someone just decides to buy some test and just take a random amount, that's crazy, right? Like you're gonna do a world of damage, right? But I feel like a lot of people would access different forums, different things, just to like find out, okay, like what should I run? Hopefully, right? And what should I do afterwards, right? That being said, people that run that 500 a week, right? You're really looking at like minimal sides, if anything.
Okay, interesting. Well, that makes sense. So what is it right now for you? Do people at the gym are quite open that they do steroids? Do you see the trends changing compared to when you started? What's the general environment that you function in right now?
The first thing I notice is that the age of use is getting lower and lower of people that think they need something right now. Like definitely, I started 8 years ago, sure, but now there's a lot of people 18 or 19 that like really want to just blast a ton of gear, and I'm like, hey, like like sure, 3 or 4 years isn't a big difference, but it's more or less the amount of them. Like I was more of an anomaly, right? Being at my age and having that interest, where a lot of people back then weren't starting steroids till they were maybe 25 or more, right? Just giving their system a little bit more time. So now it kind of seems like the norm. Someone's 20, 18, right? And they're already thinking about it. And what I've noticed is that when the thought's already there, right, they're gonna do it. Like it's bound to happen. What I would say is that the guys in the gym that are blatantly taking something, right, they're just freaks of nature, right? I've noticed that now they're more open to just talk about it, right? As long as you don't go up to them and ask them, hey, like where can I find some, right? But if you just ask them, be like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, like what do you think, right? um that's honestly it. Yeah. Like I would say it's a little bit more accepted now. I still wouldn't say it's very dominant in gyms, from my perspective at least, but it could be totally a different case if we were somewhere else.
Understood. And generally speaking, people get that from the web. People buy that off guys at the gym. What's the how do people put their hands on it on
I
gear?
yeah, I know that some people buy it from sites, which has always terrified me because I'm like, well, now how do I know this site's a real one? How do I know it's not cops on the other end that are going to come over here, right? But some people buy them off sites. A lot more people just do it face to face, right? Or they text. They'll like me for instance. I text a person that lives about 5 hours away from me, and he throws it in the mail, and it's on my door in 3 days at most, right? I've never met the guy. He's actually a friend of a friend, right? Where a different friend of mine, he goes and picks it up like face to face, right? Which again, I'd be comfortable with as well. But I like the guy that I work with now, so there is no need for me to change a source.
Yeah, that makes sense. And going kind of, are you thinking about stopping ever? What's your plan for the
Yeah.
future?
It really depends what my lab work is like, right? I definitely know that when I'm probably the age of 50, right? If my natural testosterone levels are low, I'll go on just like a very low dose, like a TRT, just
Hmm.
like a natural, no, sorry, like just a way to keep my natural amount high by supplying it from like an exogenous form, right? So taking one shot of test a week just to keep my levels of what they would be if I was, let's say, 35, right? I'll probably go that route at that point where I just stay on a very low amount year round. Um, but to be honest with you, I really don't want to do more than one cycle a year, right? I'm thinking of having kids probably in 3 years. I'm not concerned about that at all, right? A good friend of mine's a naturopathic doctor who works totally on men's health. So I know that one through my lab work, but also by working with him in the future, that I'll be able to really make my sperm as healthy as possible. And the thing with the effects of taking steroids on your sperm is that it basically just makes them dumb, right? Instead of your sperm swimming, uh, like going gung ho, find the egg, right? It's more that your sperm now is just kind of lost and it swims all over the place, right? So it's not
Hmm.
really that the quality is lower, it's just your sperm's dumb, right? When you're on cycle.
Okay, that makes sense. Is last question, because we've just hit 50 51 minute mark. In terms of how you feel now, would if you stopped, if you went cold turkey now, would you kind of have this feeling of withdrawal, not necessarily physically but mentally, the kind of feeling like something is missing?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I've been off since the start of since the end of June, right? And ever since stopping, even though my progress in the gym is still great. Like I train hard, my diet is like dialed in, right? So I'm still adding 5-10 pounds every week to most of my like compound lifts. um, I'd say it's more the feeling and the appearance, right? Where like I definitely don't look like as veiny or as like pumped up all the time. Whereas taking steroids, I would like wake up and you already look full and look like jacked, right? I have a friend of mine that I text all the time, and I'm like, dude, I can't wait to get back on. Like, it feels amazing.
Yeah, okay. So actually, if we have time for that, let's talk
Fire
about a
away.
theme that showed up
Hmm.
just from your last few sentences, which basically means that um sorry, and by that which I essentially want to say that you feel like your body, the right way for it to look is when you are on steroids rather than off of it, right?
I wouldn't say it's the right way. I would definitely say that I like the way it looks more,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I wouldn't say that me being off steroids makes me less than, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just that being on steroids just feels so good that it just feels amazing,
Yeah, no, of course,
right?
totally understand. What about something that we've talked privately of the of this chat, which is body dysmorphia? Do
Hmm.
you so for those people who might have not heard this term before, my understanding of it is that you basically do not fully embrace the way you look and you are striving to look differently, and a manifestation of it, to my the way I understand it, can be that you think you should be more jacked, you should be more bigger, more shredded. What do you see any risk of developing potentially a condition of this sort, or maybe you feel like you might already have some kind of body dysmorphia one way or another? What do you think?
Hmm. I think I think everyone who takes steroids, I think everyone who works out for the purpose of wanting to gain muscle mass and lose fat to the point where like they look jacked, right? does have a very subtle form of it, right? That just because I mean, like, you're never happy, right? You always want more. I think for myself, it's more like I know where I want to actually get to, right? I literally just want my arms to be a little bit more thick, and I'm good. That's literally it, right? I'm not an addictive type of person, so I don't believe for myself that that'll be hard. I'd say I'm more of a like a goal point type of person where I really just like that's my goal. I'm going to hit that goal, right? And I like to always have those, whether it's leaning out, being able to run faster, being able to lift more. My goals are always shifting. I know when kids are in the picture, my goals will definitely shift. I think for the majority of people, right, who take them, especially those that like abuse them, that take a significant amount, there's definitely something wrong there where they don't think they're big enough or lean enough. But you look at the person, there's not an ounce of fat on them, and they have arms the size of my head, right?
Gotcha. So you've said that you want your arms to be a little bit bigger and that will do. So
Mhm.
once your arms are a little bit bigger, are you gonna stop? No, right?
No, no, I'd probably keep using them, but at a very much more mild dose, right? Just enough to have that edge, but not enough to like are we still good here?
I believe so. I think there was a
Okay, cool.
little glitch.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I would definitely still use them just at a smaller amount, just enough to give me a little bit more of an edge. Like but nothing that you'd be able to say, well, that guy's on steroids. He blew up.
Understood. Okay. Thanks for explaining that. What's maybe let's make this one the last question.
Hey, sure, I'm fine on time.
What do you think is from your point of view, right? From your personal experiences, because I'm aware that you cannot be speaking for everyone. But from your point of view, what's the common misconceptions for general public might hold, um, that guys like me might not understand about testosterone, the steroids, generally speaking? What drives people to use them? Because there is an argument to be made, and I think it's a pretty potent one, that everyone should be left the f alone to do whatever they want as long as they're not harming other people, right? And
Hmm.
so if you want to use steroids, you should just use steroids, right? If it makes you feel good, if that's what you want to do. As I think especially the case with steroids, where that it seems to me like it's less harmful than other forms of drugs.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily know if steroids should be classified as drugs along the lines of cocaine and weed. It doesn't
Hmm.
feel like that, but I mean pharmaceuticals. People
Hmm.
abuse pharmaceuticals every day,
Hmm.
but it feels like there's way more stigma around steroids, at least to my mind.
Hmm. I mean, like, if I was to boil steroids down, they just let you recover faster, right? A lot of people think that it makes like the steroids do the work for you, and by you just taking them and sitting at home, you, you'll get jacked. That won't happen, right? So it literally just lets you recover faster so you can train harder, right? So if you put the work in, right, you'll notice some incredible gains. But if you just half-ass it in the gym, you're not going to really see much, right? I think that's the first biggest misconception there, is that steroids do the work for you. I'd say that the other one is that they're terrible for your health, right? Where, to be honest with you, as long as you do some time, you like read about them, you ask good sources online about, hey guys, what does this look like? What should I be concerned with? Right? And a lot of these forums online, once you get your lab work, you can upload it there and be like, hey guys, like take a look at this. what's happening, right? And people there that are extremely smart will say, whoa, you're the balance between your free testosterone, their total testosterone, and your estrogen are off. Like, um, you should take this to help that out, right? So yeah, I would honestly say that people think steroids do everything for you, and I think a lot of people assume that they're way more toxic than they actually are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. I'm just trying to think if there is anything worth saying before we wrap it up.
Hmm.
But honestly, I think that was very interesting. It was really cool to just learn a perspective of one person, just one guy who does it, um, not in a glamorized way, not in a vilified way, just a normal story. I think that's what I really appreciate about this conversation with you, Mitch.
I think the biggest thing, Yan, is that if people are going to do them, they should understand that you can cause yourself a ton of harm if you don't do it the right way. And thankfully, because of the internet, right, you have the world of information there. That if people are thinking about it, I would take months, right, and just read and figure out, right, just really understand what are you about to do, because you could cause yourself a lot of harm, right, if you don't do it the right way. Thankfully, the resources online are amazing, and you can find a ton of great content out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just as a qualification to this episode is by no means an informative episode.
Mhm.
This is more about just understanding the lifestyle that is associated with steroids as seen by one recreational user. By no means this is a rule book for
Mhm.
anything.
Definitely.
So yeah, to all to anyone who might be listening to this, yeah, just educate yourself however you can. Really, that's I think that's what you basically have been telling all the
Mhm.
time. And yeah,
Definitely.
stay health, and you too stay health, Mitch.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, thank you. I
Yeah,
definitely will.
yeah, stay healthy and stay jacked.
Absolutely. That's the goal. That's the goal.
Cool. It was good talking to you. I appreciate your time.
Same here. Same here.
Thanks. All the best to you, and thanks everyone.